Guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about a case that is truly blood chilling, and I say that mainly because I don't think I've talked about young criminals often, as in criminals who are well under 18 years old. And first of all, mainly because I don't come across them often. But aside from that, I find it very, very troubling. Like, it genuinely makes me shiver sometimes to think about kids who basically murder their parents. Now, obviously, we've talked about school shooters. That is another category, though it's equally chilling. Video from inside home shows Carly Gregg and what appears to be the sound of 3 gunshots. 15-year-old accused of killing her mother, wounding her stepfather in shooting. A Rankin County jury watched security video on Tuesday that appears to show a calm Carly Gregg walking through her family's house before 3 gunshots ring out. The video was recorded on March 19th at about 4:15 p.m. It was recorded by a security camera in the kitchen of the home in Brandon, where Gregg lived with her mother, Ashley Smiley, and her father, Heath Smiley. The video shows Gregg letting the family's 2 golden retrievers in the house through an exterior door leading into the kitchen. Gregg, with her hands behind her back, is seen walking past the kitchen. A few seconds later, 3 shots and a scream were heard. Gregg then walked back into the kitchen, sat down, and picked up her cell phone. Now, I'm gonna link this article down below. I'm obviously not going to put the video here, but the video of said description of her walking through the house and then the gunshots, that's this video. You don't see anything, you just hear the gunshots. It's extremely creepy. I don't know if that's upsetting to you, but everything that happens, I just read out, okay? Gregg was 14 years old when the shooting took place. Gregg is accused of fatally shooting her mother, who was a teacher at Northwest Rankin High School, where Gregg, now 15, was also a student. Gregg's stepfather took the witness stand earlier Tuesday. They loved each other so much. Just everything she did, she planned out for Carly and around Carly, Heath Smiley said. Heath Smiley said Gregg was depressed some days and was seeing a therapist. Prosecutor Catherine Newman asked him to describe what happened when he walked into the house on the day of the shooting. Everything seemed pretty normal. I came on in, and when I opened the door to the kitchen there, a gun went off in my face before the door. I don't know, was 3 or 4 inches wide, Heath Smiley said. Everything went kind of fast from then, it's a blur. Heath Smiley said the gun went off twice after that, but his hand was on the gun after the first shot. He said Gregg shot him from about a foot away. His shoulder was grazed by one of the bullets. A lot has happened here. I will say this. In the video, so like the description says, but in the video, you see her with the gun behind her back, basically checking the kitchen to see if her mom's there, and then she goes into, I think it was the bedroom, and shoots her mom there 3 times. After that, the eeriest fucking thing I've ever seen, she comes back and basically just takes her phone off the counter and sits down as if nothing happened and starts texting. I don't know what's going through her head. I don't know what any of this is like. Just as an outsider though, she seems completely like, it's like she just walked into the other room to get a cup of coffee, like nothing happened. Nothing significant happened. And I mean, just the gunshots were loud, and I think that's why the footage is so shocking, because even just the loudness of the gunshots. Anyway, she was screaming out of her mind, scared, Heath Smiley said, like she'd seen a demon or something. Video from a security camera in the garage recorded screaming, and what Heath Smiley said was him saying, "Carly, what's wrong?" Heath Smiley said he got the gun away from Gregg. He said she took off so fast he knew he wasn't going to be able to catch her. It was very, very evident to me that something was off with Carly, he said. She was so fast. He said his wife kept the .357 caliber Magnum on her side of the bed in a cubby. He said the gun had been there for years. Always put your gun in a safe. It should be in a safe at any given point. Not just for kids, but generally, like if someone breaks in, always. The first 2 witnesses called by prosecution on Tuesday were juveniles. Rankin County Circuit Court Judge Dewey Arthur barred video and audio recordings of the testimony because of the age of the witnesses. She said, "Have you ever seen a dead body? Does it make you squeamish?" Then she was like, "My mom's in there, and I peeked my head in the door," the witness said. Ashley Smiley had her arms crossed and a towel over her head. I don't even know where to begin with how creeped out I am by also the posing of a dead body. In this context, I can only assume that Gregg was the one that posed her body that way. So after shooting her, Greg went ahead and crossed her mom's arms and put a towel over her head. I really don't have enough adjectives for all of this for how creeped out I am. Court TV, which is the pool camera for media coverage, reported that the witness said Greg had a gun and was carrying it around. The witness said Greg said she'd shot her mother 3 times in the head. The witness said they heard Greg's stepfather pull up to the house, but they didn't warn him about what had happened. The second witness was a 17-year-old high school senior who said he met Greg in 2022 at a summer camp. He said Greg had used marijuana and magic mushrooms. I believe she's done cocaine once, the witness said. So a common question that not only I have, but that people on the internet have based on what I've seen, also on TikToks, because online there are TikToks showing her arrest. Again, I can't put that here because they're by Daily Mail, and you guys know they copyright me like this and take down my videos. So regardless, when they arrested her, I'll link those videos down below if you want to see them. It's alarming how young she looks, because I mean, yeah, I have an idea of what a 15-year-old looks like, but it's very different to see the 15-year-old in handcuffs and a cop being like, so you shot her in the head? But a question that was coming up on social media a lot, which honestly is a question I had myself, is how did she get to this point? Because listen, I don't know what's going on in that household. I'm not going to automatically blame the parents. I don't know what's going on. I'm just saying it seems strange to me. Like, is there trauma there? Did something happen to her in the past years? You know, like what is the history? Because the simple fact of the matter is most kids have some type of warning sign. Whether the parents catch it or not is a different story, but there usually are some warning signs. And she was seeing a therapist, which we'll get into later. Kids don't just act quote unquote normal and aren't quote unquote normal and then decide to take out a gun that apparently has always been available, like she always could have taken it out of the cubby, and then decide to shoot their parent and then pose their parent. Like, this doesn't just happen randomly. Like, there has to be something going on, whether it's mental illness, whether it's trauma, whether it's whatever else, you know, like people were questioning what pushed her to this. And that's also what I'd like to know, because I refuse to believe it's just, you know, la-di-da, this happened. On Monday, a 911 call was played for the jury in which a crying and hysterical Heath Smiley told the dispatcher that Greg tried to kill him after she shot and killed her mother. Greg was seen crying and wiping away tears as she listened to the 911 recording. She also became emotional when the prosecution played the body camera video from the Rankin County deputy at the scene. The deputy said Greg ran from the scene after the shooting, but she was later captured. Greg is charged as an adult. If convicted, she faces 20 years to life in prison. Testimony continues Tuesday. The trial is expected to last about a week. So let's talk about the psychological side of this via psychiatrist testimony and all that. Dr. Andrew Clark, a psychiatrist who testified for the defense, said Greg told him that on the way home from school on that day, her mother, Ashley Smiley, told her that she knew Greg had been smoking marijuana. Clark said Greg began smoking marijuana about 6 weeks before the shooting. Greg told him that she remembers letting the dogs out, but then her memory went blank. Clark said Greg told him the next thing she remembers, she was standing on the side of the road where a deputy picked her up. Tony Shack, a K-9 officer with the Rankin County Sheriff's Office, testified earlier on Wednesday that he found Greg walking down Farmington Boulevard after the shooting. "Is my stepdad okay?" Greg asked him. Shack said Greg never asked about her mother. Clark said Greg was experiencing a mental health crisis on the day of the shooting. He said Greg was having significant mood swings, which were made worse by medication. The voices she was hearing were getting worse and becoming problematic for her. He said she was also having dissociative problems. And then her mother finds out she's smoking marijuana, Clark said. For Carly in particular, she so cared about her mother's approval, so for her, this was a crisis. Clark said Greg had a close yet complicated relationship with her mother and a close, affectionate relationship with her stepfather, Heath Smiley. Her relationship with her biological father, who Clark said had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, was more problematic. So already here, I guess we have a little bit more clarification on what is going on. I feel like the articles that don't include this part are missing a big chunk because we still have a lot of whys, and I don't think this will answer everything, but the fact that she was having, allegedly, according to the psychiatrist, a mental health crisis explains a lot compared to, yeah, she came home and just shot her mom just because. Even the finding out about her smoking marijuana, depending on what kind of person you are, like in this case, that might push you into a mental health crisis. So it already makes more sense in this way. Clark said when Greg was 11 or 12, she started cutting herself, not in an effort to kill herself, but to feel better by taking her mind off her depression and anxiety. Clark said her parents learned of the self-harm in December 2023. Clark said Greg's mother took her to a pediatrician and later to a therapist. She was prescribed medication, which Clark said didn't seem to have much of an effect, so the dosage was increased. Greg complained of feeling numb or flat, Clark said. She was having mood issues, eating disorder issues, cutting herself, hearing voices, and sleeping difficulty, all leading up to January of 2024, Clark said. Greg told Clark she had been put on a new medication on March 12, which he said made her symptoms worse. He said her lows were lower and her highs were higher and the voices were getting worse. I don't know how all of this works wherever she is, or with her providers, whatever the case may be. But this is exactly why whenever you're on medication, you need to do continuous checkups. I don't know if it's once every month or once every 3 months, depending. This is exactly why you do continuous checkups. I don't know why her parents didn't get her to do continuous checkups, though I guess if she didn't voice anything, there's no way they could have known she was hearing voices unless she told them. Medication can really fuck with you like that, and I think that's also a big reason why a lot of people are scared to take it. I remember when I was put back on antidepressants not that long after Jacob passed away, I was really not about it. I really resisted taking them just because in the past, they've made me more suicidal. Greg is currently on a mood stabilizer and an antidepressant, which Clark said seems to work for her. During cross-examination by the prosecution, Clark said he spent about 4 hours interviewing Greg and had a Zoom call with her stepfather. Clark told prosecutors that Greg had not told anyone about the voices until the day of the shooting. There you go. So they didn't know anything. So as of right now, that's all that's out there. The only other thing that's relevant is an update from today, Thursday, September 19th. And it says that during the testimony Thursday, Dr. Jason Pickett, a psychiatrist, described Greg's actions as diabolical. Pickett said he spent more than 4 hours interviewing Greg with her attorney present. Pickett said he also reviewed evidence before writing an 85-page report for the prosecution. In my opinion, Carly does not meet Mississippi's standard for insanity at the time of the offense, and she knew the nature and quality of her actions on that day. And then Pickett went on to reference testimony that Greg's father was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and her concerns about showing symptoms of the condition. Pickett said based on his evaluation of medical records and what Greg told him, he questioned the bipolar diagnosis and treatment for her father, and therefore the possibility that she too may have the disorder. I highly doubt and do not believe Carly has bipolar disorder, Pickett said. The prosecution called nurse practitioner Olivia Leber on Thursday as a rebuttal witness. Leber said she first met Greg in January 2024, at which time Greg filled out a form and checked no to a question that asked if she was hearing voices. Leber said Greg was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and adjustment disorder. Greg had complained of being depressed, which Leber noted wasn't chronic. Otherwise, Greg appeared to have normal responses during their appointment. She denied hallucinations or delusions. I'll link the article down below. This puts into question everything in terms of what she says is going on. So the question, I guess, here for people to decide is whether she actually was hearing voices and chose to not say that to any of these psychiatrists or even a therapist, or whether she actually isn't hearing voices and that's just something she's trying to say. I honestly don't know. I think we have to see how this continues, but certainly something is wrong. So I refuse to believe that nothing happened and nothing's wrong. Doesn't mean she has mental illness. Doesn't mean there has to be a trauma. A well-adjusted, regular, quote-unquote person doesn't just shoot their parent, right? So there has to be something going on. And maybe the motivation is something else. Maybe it's not trauma. Maybe it's not mental illness, but there has to be something, whether it's a motivation of something that's going on at home that we didn't know about. Anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.